What's up guys, Alan Brock here, coming to you from my new home office. The upcoming twins, which will be here any week now, have kicked me out of my old office, so I set up a new office in the basement. Got some lighting I've added to it, so hopefully we can get a little more production value to these videos. But today I want to talk about printing, specifically printing your work in photo books, photo albums. Now, I have used over the years a couple different online labs to print photo books to put in my work office or give to gifts to family. And they've always been pretty good, but I'm a typical photographer. As soon as I get a print back or a book of prints back, stick it right up to my nose, inspect it way too close. And the image quality has just never been there. It's never quite been as good as what I can print on an inkjet printer and fine art paper such as Hahnemühle, Canson, or Ilford. So a while back I was printing on some sample Moab paper, and I noticed in the little brochure they sent, they have two products called Chinle books. And it lets you print on their fine art paper and then assemble the book. Being that image quality is the most important thing to me, I thought this was a really good opportunity to finally be able to print books that I controlled every step of the way and really have those images on fine art paper. So they have two different books. One has a clear cover. I went with the leather-bound book. You can see it comes, the book itself comes in a hardcover here. And you've got various different posts, so you can add various different size posts, so you can add pages to it over time. And you'll see it just opens, and then you attach the pages to these 3-hole punch binders in the center. Now, Moab has a couple different papers you can use to print the books on, and a couple different sizes. They have an 8x8 and a 12x12. Being that I'm a large format shooter, I wanted the biggest size possible, so clearly went with the 12x12. And I decided to print on their Entrada rag bright paper. It's kind of their most popular matte paper. So ordered the double-sided Entrada rag, made the book, came out really well. I'm really excited about the image quality of the book. So thought I would take you guys along on how the book is made, kind of go through how to orient the pages so you don't get anything backwards, as well as some tips about printing on the Entrada rag paper. It's a little bit finicky. I consider myself a pretty good printer, and it took me quite a few hard proofs to get it right, but I've come up with, I think, a pretty good adjustment system to get good image quality. So I thought I would share that with you guys, as well as just my overall opinions of the book. So let's get started. We'll go over orienting the pages and then we'll print them up. So I'm going to go into the steps that I go through to print these 12x12 images. Now I've got my image opened up here, and I've already sized it to an 8x10. Now these were all taken on 4x5 film, so sizing it to an 8x10 keeps the original ratio intact, as well as on the printed paper, on the 12x12 paper, it's going to give me a nice at least 1-inch border on the long end, and of course several inches on the narrow end. Now the design I'm going for is very basic, very simple. On the right hand page, I want just a single image. On the left hand page, describing that image, all I want is the title I've given the image and the a description of where it was taken. So with this image of Archangel Falls here, I'll put the name of the image, and then probably underneath it put the left fork of North Creek. That will be on the left hand page, and then the right page in the album will just have the image itself. So let's go into how I print those. I've got my image here again, in an 8x10 ratio, 8x10 size. And I'm going to go into my canvas size. Now the printed paper is 12x12, so let's go down here to inches and get 12 12, keep the image centered here. Okay, that out. And now we've got our image centered in the paper there, and you can, that's a preview of what it's going to print like. So there's 2 steps here to get this to print in the correct orientation. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this. I'm going to rotate it once clockwise. The next thing I do is in the print dialog box here. Let's pull that up. I print out of Photoshop. It's a 16-bit TIFF file, so let's go through my settings just briefly here. This is not a print tutorial, but let's go over some things I do. I want to send 16-bit data. I don't want the printer to manage colors. I've calibrated. I want to manage the colors, so Photoshop manages it. And I'm going to go down here to my profile. Let's see, Entrada Rake Bright. Relative colorimetric, because that's what I soft proofed it as. I'll show you that a bit later on. Black point compensation always checked here. So the important thing to remember to get the orientation of your image correct. Go into print settings here. This dialog box, I want to check reverse page orientation. What that's going to do is make sure that if I've rotated it once clockwise and then I reverse my page orientation, it's going to print out correctly to be on the right side of the album when you open it. So those 2 things, very important. Let me just check the rest of my settings here. Make sure I've got it. Photo RPM highest quality, about out of cyanic here. So save that out. And we are ready to print. So I'm going to hit print, and we'll load some paper here, and we'll print it. Okay, so for the title pages, the even number pages, or the pages on the left-hand side of the book when it's open, similar workflow with one pretty important difference here. So I've got my 12 by 12 canvas set up with the title, description underneath. I'm going to go to image. Again, I'm going to rotate it clockwise. However, the difference is when I go to print, go into my print settings again, I'm going to uncheck reverse page orientation. That way everything will be correct when you open it. So that important difference, make sure you have all your pages kind of planned out. And for the ones on the left-hand side, make sure you uncheck reverse page orientation there. All right, so we are just about ready to print. I'm going to load the sheet of paper into the sheet feeder of my Epson R2000 here. Very important, just load it with the 3-hole punch side up. Slide that in there. Now I usually print 1 sheet at a time, but we are ready to go. So we've got everything printed. We're just about ready to put the pages in the book. But first, I want to spray all the prints with Moab's Desert Varnish. Now these prints, being that they're in a portfolio book, are going to see a lot more handling than, say, a printed frame or a frame print. So this, spraying it on there, gives it a measure of UV protection, waterproof. It's going to help increase the life of it. So you're just going to hold it, 10 inches away. Get a good coat on there going horizontally, let it dry for a few minutes, come back and put a second coat on, and that'll give it a measure of protection. All right, so we've got everything printed up. We sprayed it with the desert varnish, gave it plenty of time to dry. We have placed our pages in order, and now we are ready to assemble our book. Now, one thing Moab recommends is before you assemble the book, to kind of break the spine in a little bit, fold it, kind of roll it back and forth, just to make sure everything turns over as smoothly as possible. So what you want to do is select the screw and post size that you need for the thickness of paper that you have. My book is 14 pages, and I found that the longer screw size, longer post size without any extensions works quite well. So what you want to do is these little flaps unfold those, and on the left side I'll place the posts. Place the 3 of those in there, and then fold the flap down and fold it down against the left side of your book. Now, I found it easiest to grab just about 4 or 5 sheets at a time. Hold that down and then slide these sheets on. I tried to do it all at once and it just would not very easily align. So I'll just keep repeating that until you get all the pages of your book seated down in there. Now, holding that pretty firmly down, slide the right side over the top of the posts and place the screws in that. Easier said than done sometimes. Get all 3 of those placed in there. And then once they're kind of hand tight, I'll press it together pretty firmly. Just kind of go over it with a screwdriver, just to make sure it's in there as tight as possible. Fold the flap back over, and you have created a portfolio book. So to close out this video, I want to give some of my thoughts on the book. First, we'll go over the negatives. One thing that I actually thought was going to be a negative turned out to not be a big deal is the paper itself is 190 weight paper. That is a little bit thin from what I'm used to printing on. I'm used to printing on about 300 weight paper. So it felt a little flimsy. I knew it was going to have to be a bit thinner for the pages to be able to turn, but it turned out to be a non-issue. The pages feel really substantial as far as a book goes. The paper itself, the Entrada rag, I have found it to be very fragile. I've had to make several reprints because of little flakes coming off and leaving little white marks in the prints. I'm pretty gentle about handling the paper. I'm working with Moab right now. They think maybe I got kind of a bad batch because this paper is really highly reviewed. So I think I just kind of got, like I said, a bad batch. Certainly the vast majority of the prints have been fine, but I've had a few where little flakes have come off, and that's a little bit annoying. It always seems to happen in the darkest shadows where it really stands out. So trying to work that out, I wouldn't let that deter you from printing your own book, though. Like I said, the majority of my pages have been fine. The only other downside is the pages obviously don't lay flat. They're pinched together and there's just no way for them to lay flat. I knew that coming in, wasn't expecting them to, and I don't think there's a real way to print your own book and have lay flat pages. That's just a convenience. So that's the negative stuff out of the way. I really, really like this book. The image quality is phenomenal, and like I said, that was my biggest goal coming in. I just wanted something that printed well on fine art paper to have my own book. And like I said, image quality is just tremendous. Highly recommend, if you're thinking about putting a portfolio book together, I highly recommend this because it's just very impressive. This 12 by 12 size, if you're looking to, again, a portfolio book to submit to galleries or trying to sell your work, these images that's really substantial. Being able to print, in my case, up to 8 by 10, really, really looks good. So if you're looking to print your own book, give these Chinle books from Moab give them a try. I've really enjoyed putting this one together. A few little nitpicks here and there, but I'm getting those worked out, and it's just been a really good experience. And you come out with a really, really high-end looking product. So thanks guys for watching. If you have any comments, any questions about putting the book together, leave them in the comments below, and we'll see you guys next time. I don't know when that will be because the twins could be here any minute, but I'll keep making videos when I find time. See you guys later. All right, so I chose to go with Moab Entrada rag because it's Moab's kind of flagship paper. It's, at least according to their own promotional material, it's what they're best known for. But I found it a bit difficult to print on, at least for me, so I wanted to go over a few things I figured out with it that'll hopefully help you along if you choose to print on Entrada rag. So let's go into Photoshop here, and we'll soft proof it, and right off the bat you'll see that, let me select Moab Entrada rag bright, there's my ICC profile, and simulate color, paper color. It's very important. Now right off the bat you'll notice that it may be tough to see this if you're watching on YouTube, but gives it a really washed out, faded look. Now that's somewhat to be expected because it is a matte paper, but I found that when profiling this, it's more washed out than even comparable papers by Haunted Mule or Ilford or Canson rather. So I've discovered a few things about this that I'll share with you. Hopefully it will make you your printing a little bit easier and you'll waste less paper than I did. But with the soft proof pulled up here, let's go ahead and OK this out, and I'll darken my screen. When I profile it, the correct brightness is down to 4 dots. So Apple really cranks up the brightness on their screens. So right now we've got a very dull, washed out, darkened image. Also, it's put a lot of magenta in there, particularly in the shadows. So let's go over how we're going to fix that. Pretty much standard for what I do when all prints on Moab. Once I've got my soft proof, once I'm viewing that, I opened up a curves adjustment, and we're going to add a very exaggerated S-curve here. Really going to bring down the shadows a lot, kind of even out the highlights here. Now that's getting us back to something that resembles what I want here. We've still got quite a bit of magenta in the shadows. Opposite of magenta is green, so let's go ahead and go into the green curves channel here. I'm going to take the output adjustment here, and let's just raise that just a little bit. That's going to take out the magenta in the shadows, a little bit in the midtones there, and that's looking pretty good. Now another hint I do, I'm going to close out that. I never use this except for when I'm preparing an image for print, but I'll open up a brightness contrast adjustment layer. I found this works really well to bring some punch back to the image that is lost by printing on a matte paper here. So to get some punch back in the highlights, let's add some brightness here, just a little bit. That's looking pretty good there, and a bit of contrast. Yeah, that looks good. I may go in and fine tune. We're starting to have a little bit washed out in this reflected light area back here by this lone pine tree. So I may go back in to my curves here and just find out where on the curve that is. Somewhere in the upper quarter here, and I may just bring that down a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. And bringing that down, took a little bit of contrast out. So you go back in and fine tune it back and forth a little bit. But yeah, that's looking pretty good there. This is ready to print. So that's pretty much the standard 2 adjustment layers I will work with when I am preparing these prints for, or preparing these images for print on the Entrada rag.